Okay, there we go. That's the plan anyway. I ended up using this as the bottom rail. That's a bit thicker to drill and tap into. So that'll be with a power supply reinforcing bracket rail. And yeah, it should be pretty good. I'm just going to make sure I do all my chassis cutting before I start plug welding it to it. I might just screw it to it temporarily and then plug weld it when I do the final assembly and get ready for painting. So I'm probably going to have to paint this thing. There's going to be welds, there's going to be burnt zinc. Being zinc plated, it's going to burn when I try and weld it. Probably means grinding the area back or just putting up with it. It's going to get a little bit messy, but overall not diabolically bad. So yeah, better turn on the TIG welder and go to it. It's going to be sort of a point by point thing, just a little bit here, a little bit there, just distribute the stress and the heat. The metal likes to pull when it cools down after you've welded it. The weld area contracts a little bit, and if you don't clamp it thoroughly to the table, it'll try and walk over when you've welded it. Anyone who's done welding knows what I'm talking about. Those of you who haven't, I should probably do a video one day on well, welding basics, even though there are a million videos on it on YouTube. I might just do it anyway. Helps if you go ground. Getting there. Definitely need a better regulator. Not only does it leak internally, externally, but it hemorrhages gas every time you push the trigger. Not really made for this, it's actually made for a MkIII, so I'd need the much smaller TIG regulator with a much smaller flexible line. It just wastes gas really. Mind you, I've only used a fraction of the bottle since I've had it, so I'm doing pretty well. But, yeah, I'll do a proper video on TIG welding eventually. Basically using tungsten as your electrode, and the arc is like a flame on an oxy torch, essentially, just hotter. Works very well. Just create a puddle and then drip your filler rod in as you go along. It's really quite easy once you get the hang of it. All I've done is just tack some of the corners. I'll remove some of these clamps like the plastic ones. Basically, if I can find a couple more metal G clamps, I'll just clamp that join there and then seam weld both sides and then do all that. Probably won't fully seam weld the entire structure, but I'll give it enough weld to be strong. Like, just make it strong, make it so I can attach the computer case and then put it on the wall. So even if I just weld all the downs, the verticals, and then pull it off the table and see what it's like, should be strong enough. If I weld all the horizontals, I could warp it a bit more than I already am. At the moment it can only sort of go diamond shape. If I weld a lot of the horizontals incorrectly or too quickly, it'll cause it to bow in all kinds of ways. It's a bit of an art working out which way the metal's going to bow and twist when you're welding it. It's yeah, tricky, but very enjoyable. I love welding. I do it pretty much every day at work. Stainless steel TIG welding. Yeah, I love it. That and aluminium TIG welding and MIG welding. It's good fun. Oh, and in case you're wondering what plug welding is, say if I wanted to weld this all the way around the outside, that'd be a seam weld, but if I wanted to plug weld it, I'd fill that hole in the middle, blending it with the workpiece. It's handy if you want to weld two pieces of angle line back to back. This is a job I'm doing, or I've got one of the guys at work doing at the moment. We've got two pieces of 40 by 40 stainless steel angle that are about 700mm long, and they have to be welded together back to back, so we've got a flat T-shaped profile. So far, I mean, trying to weld across the top means you've got to grind all the welds back, and top and bottom you're just going to warp it. So he's drilled 10mm holes every 80mm or so along the length, and filled them with the MIG, welding the two together, and they're ever so slightly domed on the top, but that's not important because it's a bench seat. If anything, it actually works in our favour. So yeah, that's an example of plug welding. I'll show you one day. It's quite handy because when I'm going to plug weld the case, essentially I'm going to drill out some of these holes a bit bigger and just take the TIG and gently fill, like start the arc on the base metal and add filler until it creates a puddle involving both the base metal and the thin sheet metal computer case. Yeah, there are some old pressed metal fixtures in here that have to be ground off. There's quite a bit of work to do on it. I won't even grind them off actually, I'll just get a countersink and rip them off. But yeah, there's potential in it, and I am going to be using the drive bays too. They do need to be cut down and trimmed, but the caddies are going to hold the SATA hard drives, and I'll just run power and data ribbons straight off there. So it will feature a lot of the server's original chassis work, just not as it was originally intended. Okay, looks good. I've got enough protrusion to sink some bolt holes through here, or screw holes. I'm just going to hold it on the wall with some big coarse thread screws. It's going into 12mm MDF, so that's heaps strong. And once it's all screwed or plug welded to the frame, it'll stop it from doing things like that. But the whole thing is just one big crispy chip at the moment, potato chip, just bend, bend, bend. Once it's screwed on, the middle section will still be a bit soft, but I could solve that with a crossbar. I could do a vertical bar, but again, there's not really a lot of point. All I'm trying to do is stop it from tearing itself apart by twisting. Because just when you move it, you see everything open up. Every panel gap opens and closes whenever you move it around, so that's not good in any computer case. If your case twists and buckles whenever you move it, you've got a really cheap, nasty case, and I have seen motherboards destroyed by that. So beware. Buy a reasonable case, or at least try and stiffen the one you've got, or just don't move it. Taking them to LAN parties when they're a flexible case, that's killed plenty of mainboards. And causes other issues like cards popping out of their slots partially, various glitches and things like that. It's not good. You want a nice stiff solid chassis to mount your computer hardware in, and that's why I built this subframe, because I knew I wasn't going to get away without it. So yeah, that's about all for tonight, and thanks for watching. There we go. That worked well. It's flat. It's somewhat square. It'll do the job just fine. I really do need to buy one of those Build Pro strong hand tables like what we got at work, but that's like a $5,000 investment to get it fully set up, and I don't really have the room for a big one. So this portable old die plate table will do just fine. Used to be a lawnmower deck die. Now it's one of the most universal tables I've ever had. Funny thing is, the top plate was surface ground when I got it. Not anymore. It's ground, but not in the right way. That's how much abuse this table's copped. Particularly tack welding things to it. It's the worst thing you could do, but still, sometimes you just got to do it. So yeah, basic shop fabrication time. Let's see how the case sits on it. Alright, well, I figured instead of welding it, I'll just quickly rivet it on here, and if I have to modify anything, I can just drill them out again, because, well, I've got thousands of them. That's only just some of the aluminium ones I've got. I've got stainless, mostly tons of mild steel or galvanized rivets, things like that, and well, we've got an easy way of popping them too. If you can get your hands on a power gun, much better. It's a really old one that I saved from the bin at work. I've just managed to get it working, and it works well. At least on softer rivets, it doesn't like stainless or Monel ones anymore. But it loves alley rivets and mild steel. That one's going to be a pain. I don't think I can... Yeah, I'm going to have to hammer that back straight again, but that'll work. That'll work quite well. Perfect. No more floppy computer case. Alright, that's enough for tonight. I wasn't going to do this tonight, but yeah, you know. I had a brainwave at the last minute. I still need to put a couple down here, but that's alright. I'll do that later. It's a much sturdier computer case.